Welcome back, everybody. Today, we've got a quick 5-minute blast, and that is because we just caught wind of what could be the most significant freight rail merger in American history. So, according to the Wall Street Journal, Union Pacific is in early talks to acquire Norfolk Southern. And if this deal goes through, it would create the very first coast to coast freight rail network in the US. It would be a $200 billion mega railroad that would, quite frankly, completely reshape the structure of the rail industry. So, to put this into perspective, that is far bigger than the last rail merger we were talking about extensively, which was a $31 billion merger between Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern. That wrapped up in 2023. Now, Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern, they aren't just any railroads. Actually, they bring very different freight portfolios to the table. And that's exactly why this deal is going to catch a lot of regulatory scrutiny. So you can expect major pushbacks, definitely from the rivals, BNSF, CSX, and Canadian Pacific Kansas City. They're likely all going to rally support from shippers in an effort to just block this merger in general. So both UP and NS follow a strategy, and it's a similar strategy for railroading called precision scheduled railroading, or PSR. That prioritizes efficiency, cost control, and it maximizes their asset utilization. Now, it's a model that was pioneered back in the day by the late E. Hunter Harrison, but Union Pacific's current CEO, Jim Vena, he's been very deeply committed to this practice. Actually, there was a few articles that were posted, I want to say almost 5 years back, where they really reinvigorated their focus on PSR. Now, there's a lot more to this story, though. So some analysts are speculating that Union Pacific might have actually been better off targeting CSX for a merger instead. And there's a few reasons to that. Financially and operationally, Norfolk Southern has underperformed CSX in recent years. And from a freight mix standpoint, UP and CSX are much more aligned. So 55% of Union Pacific's volume is non-intermodal cargo. And that's actually almost identical to CSX's. Norfolk Southern, on the other hand, leans much heavier into an intermodal range. So, that does matter. And that's actually kind of funny, going back to Jim Vena, UP's current CEO. So he is not a huge fan of intermodal. Actually, in a recent conference, he said, and I'm going to quote this, "I like industrial and bulk business." And he questioned whether railroads had made the right strategic decisions around intermodal. Now, later in that conference, actually pretty quickly, he clarified, "Oh no, I love intermodal customers." But it was pretty clear that he was saying intermodal doesn't fit this mold, particularly with PSR. So if this merger does happen, the ripple effects across the intermodal market, quite frankly, could be massive. So take JB Hunt, for example. They're the largest intermodal provider in the US, and they've partnered exclusively with BNSF for nearly 40 years and rely heavily on Norfolk Southern in the east of the US. Now, this merger could force them to rethink their entire East Coast strategy. While they could shift more volume to CSX, a combined UP and NS would have serious pricing power, enough to, quite frankly, challenge JB Hunt in contract negotiations with shippers. Other big players like UPS, Swift, and Hub Group, they already use both UP and NS. But companies like Schneider and STG, they're already locked in multi-year contracts with CSX, particularly in the east of the US. So this could get messy pretty fast. And when you think about container pool access, that's a whole nother can of worms. So Union Pacific, they control the EMP and the UMAX 53-foot container pools, sharing it with NS and CSX and Canadian National. So, if this merger limits CSX's access, it could disrupt a huge swath of domestic intermodal freight. One analyst actually put it, from a single line coast to coast service kind of coming out and being part of this market, you could see pricing more competitive than trucking. And that would really accelerate freight shifting off of the highways and onto rail. But for shippers and service providers, the uncertainty of this move could be enormous. So the real question I think everyone has on their mind is, while we are in the early stages, could this deal actually happen? And it's just too soon to tell. I mean, as we mentioned, there's a lot of things that regulators are going to dig their teeth into with this merger. The sheer size of it in general is quite concerning. But, if this does happen, it won't just be any other merger. It will be a quite literal seismic shift in how the US deals with rail freight. So that's it for our quick Ship Show News Blast. Don't forget to follow us for our weekly breakdowns every week, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.